Christian Fernandez is a 13-year-old boy in Florida who has just been charged with murder. Now, he might face a life sentence in prison because of this, and it's because he beat his 2-year-old stepbrother to death. Now, there are a couple things to keep in mind when talking about this story. First of all, he was the victim of abuse growing up. He was the son to a 12-year-old mother. When he was 2 years old, he was found naked and dirty wandering the streets, and his grandmother was supposed to be taking care of him at that time. However, she was in a motel high on cocaine. He was beaten by his stepfather. He was moved from one place to another. I mean, he was the victim of horrible, horrible violence growing up.
He had been abused when he was young, sexually abused,
Yes.
As if all this wasn't bad enough. And by the way, his father was a 25-year-old who had sexually assaulted his 12-year-old mother, right? And then they both had to go to foster care at the same time because the mom is only 12 and he's a baby, right? So, I mean, you couldn't find a harder background. Now, having said that, what he did to the kids was outrageous.
So let me be more detailed about what he is charged with. First of all, he's charged with first-degree murder in the 2011 beating of his 12-year-old half-brother. And also, he was accused of sexually abusing his 5-year-old half-brother.
So, two different cases. One is abuse. Now, there's 28 other things that the kid's charged with, masturbating in school, yada, yada. Obviously, by comparison, it's nothing compared to what he has done here. And it's not just that he once did a wrestling move and it knocked the kid into the shelf and knocked him unconscious and wound up killing him. Mm-hmm. He had broken that same kid's leg before.
Yes.
Doing other wrestling moves. So he's got deep issues.
Yes.
So on the one hand, you look at it and you go, I don't want this kid out there, man. I don't know what kind of damage he can cause to the next kid, right? On the other hand, now Florida is asking for a life sentence.
Right. Now, we should be fair. The special prosecutor in this case, and it's Angela Corey, right, she is saying that the prosecutors are not already, admitting that they are going to press charges and ask for a life sentence, right? They're considering it. So nothing is set in stone yet. But it is important to keep in mind that just this last summer, the Supreme Court did rule that a life sentence, a mandatory life sentence for minors is unconstitutional. However, the state of Florida has not changed their laws yet.
So they're going for the 25 to life category, and then they'll figure out later, where he's going to fall in that range. So since it's unconstitutional, likely he won't get life, but he could get 25 years. And the point is, should he be treated as a juvenile or as an adult? And I think it's a really hard case. What do you think, Anna?
I don't think it's as hard as it seems. I think that at the age of 13, considering the fact that he was the victim of such violence and abuse growing up, he needs psychological help. He should be treated as a juvenile. He should receive the psychological help necessary. I'm not saying let him go and let him free. I'm saying that we should definitely consider what he went through in his life because, look, our prison system is not focused on rehabilitating people. Treating him as an adult and putting him in prison for a minimum of 25 years is not going to help the situation whatsoever.
Look, the flip side is it's not like in juvenile detention they're going to wonderfully rehabilitate him, and those places are a hot mess too.
No, I totally understand that, but at the same time, I hate how it's either or, right? It's either a juvenile or an adult, and no matter what, you throw him into a system that does nothing to rehabilitate him. He needs psychological help. That's the bottom line. And is he really going to receive that? Considering what our prison systems are today, probably not.
Can he even recover even if he got psychological help? A lot of the people that interview him say he doesn't show very much emotion, and understandably so. And he's told someone when he was much younger, look, I had to bury the emotion. And
right.
If you were in a situation, you'd probably want to bury the emotion too. And look at his perspective. His perspective is this kind of violence is the only thing he's ever grown up around.
There was a brief period of time where his family moved to Jacksonville and he went to school and he received straight A's. I think that there is a glimmer of hope in this boy, and I hate the fact that society immediately wants to give up on him, thinking, oh, well, psychological help isn't going to work.
I hear you, but I always think about the victims too. And that poor 2-year-old is dead. The 5-year-old got abused. So, I mean, you can't bring back someone after they died. And so I want to be tough, but on the other hand, being tough with a 13-year-old isn't that tough.
Right,
I mean, it says more about you than it does about him.
Let's talk
sometimes.
about the fact that the mother in the case, after she discovered that her 2-year-old son was severely injured, waited until she took him to the hospital. He could have survived.
8.5 hours. They said in her case that they really believe he could have survived if she'd taken him immediately. She must have panicked, like thought, I got to cover this up. She Googled unconsciousness to try to figure out what to do on her own, I presume. She texted friends, and she got 30 years. So it's not like she wasn't punished, right? So, Jer and Jesus, what do you think? Juvenile or adult treatment for this guy?
Yeah, we all know adult treatment doesn't do anything. But I mean, I don't think we should do juvenile either, because as you just said, those places are a hot mess too. They're just prison for kids, and then they have the guise of not having to put them with adults and all that stuff. But in reality, so we failed this kid his whole life, from just getting him out of a bad situation he was in. He could have died. He could have been that 2-year-old that died. So he grows up to 12 when this happened, to be this buried emotional person, because obviously there's a mental problem he has, to protect himself. And so now we're looking to throw him away to the prison because that's what we do, and that's going to solve the problem. So he kills a kid on accident, purposely on accident, playing or not, 8 hours of head trauma, who knows? But we're just going to just say, shove him aside, that's going to work? It doesn't do anything. So instead of doing something to change how this keeps happening to kids, we just throw him away and let the next one come too.
So you guys wouldn't even send him to juvenile detention, you'd send him to a facility to get a mental health treatment.
Right, and I wouldn't want him, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't want him released into society until mental health professionals know that he is no longer a threat to society.
Right, and that's a tough determination, and I'm scared about it. But I think I think you guys are right. I think we're going to be unanimous. I don't think that there's any other sane solution here, right? Now, I'm scared to death about what's going to happen in the future with him, but our best shot is to send him for mental health treatment and hope against hope that he can get better given how he grew up. But it's not going to do anybody any good to send him to jail for 25 years. Because even if you cared only about what's going to happen to others and you don't care about that kid at all, what's going to happen when he gets out of prison 25 years later?
Right.
Is that going to be a guy who's not going to hurt other folks? What happens if he goes to juvenile prison and comes out, 5 years or 8 years later? How hardened is he going to be after spending that time in juvenile detention? So I'm with you guys. Maybe we're too liberal. I don't know. Everybody has a different opinion on it. But my sense is let's at least give it a shot and try to give him some treatment and see if he can get better. Now, if he was an adult, it would be a 1,000,000% different story. But he's not. He's only 13.